All right, so welcome everybody. My name is Catherine. This is our Ollie program, and we're doing a program called Near Death and Spiritually Transformative Experiences. And today I have a wonderful guest. Her name is Claire Daugherty, and Claire has an amazing story to tell us about her near-death experience and what she is doing in the world after that happened to her. Um, so I'm going to let Claire take it away. And thank you so much for being here with us, Claire. We
Oh,
appreciate
my
it.
pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. And I would like to apologize to everyone for showing up so late. Um, I was trying to be in three places at once today, and I have not learned to bilocate.
Yeah, it's okay. Of
So
course, we're just glad you're
uh,
here. We're
yes,
just
I'm safely parked now. Normally, I don't appear from my car, but here
okay.
I am. And my near-death experience happened many years ago. It was in 1970. So 56 years ago. I was very young. I was 20 years old. So if you do the math, you can figure out I'm 76 now, or will be next month. Um, I was living and working in France, in Paris, as an au pair girl, which is like a mother's helper. It was a little part-time gig, so I wanted to learn French fluently, and I accomplished that. And my French family was going on vacation, a mother and two children. I was in the back seat with an 18-month-old baby, and the 5-year-old was up front with his mother. I don't think we even had seat belts in the back in 1970. And it was late at night, and the car was laden with luggage. It was a little hatchback, brand new car. And the mother, who was the driver, fell asleep at the wheel in a pounding rain, a pouring rain, in a little two-lane country road in the northwest of France. We were on our way to the seaside in Brittany. She went off the road, tried to correct. She woke up as soon as she left the highway, came back, and went into a violent spin. Just a minute, I'm being harassed by spammers. And I woke up as the car was spinning like a top. And I remember the thought going through my head, well, I guess this is the end of my life. Nothing I can do about this. I just hope the moment that my spirit leaves my body is not excruciatingly painful. I thought I would probably, uh, you know, be crushed because of the intensity that the car was spinning in. And miraculously, we didn't flip over. We hit a concrete utility pole, and the car kind of wrapped around it. But I don't remember that. I saw later the remains of the car. When I had that thought, I hope when I leave this body, it's not, unbearably painful. Suddenly, I wasn't in my body anymore. I was standing in front of a large door, like a thick oak door, like the door of a castle, and it had wrought iron door pulls. But I could see what was on the other side of the door. My spiritual eyes perceived that on the other side of this door was a beautiful, unspeakably magnificent green field with unearthly colors, a rich green field. And at the end of the field was a cliff that dropped down to the sea. And the feeling of joy and love and welcome was really impossible to describe. And I remember feeling so excited and delighted. And as I put my hands to pull the door open, suddenly I felt two invisible hands on my chest thrust me backward. And I guess that was the heavenly bouncer said, sorry, you can't come in. And I was thrown from the car. I don't remember exiting the car. I remember being catapulted just before landing, and I landed flat on my back in a field on the other side of the highway. And it was rain soaked, which probably softened my landing. And I remember realizing that I was still alive, and I was a bit confused and startled by that reality. And the first thought that went through my mind was, what a jip. I really wanted to go through that door. And then I checked to see if all my limbs were still attached and I could move all four limbs. And I remember thinking, I wonder if I still have a face. I put my hand to my face and it was covered in blood. I had a small cut on the bridge of my nose, and your face bleeds profusely. So I didn't know if I was in shreds or what. I did crack the bridge of my nose. It was the only broken bone of the four people in this horrific accident. The baby, who was 18 months old, was also thrown across the highway, and he landed in soft, squishy mud, inches from a stone wall. The mother and child in the front seat were bruised, but they both got out of the car and walked on their own. Fortunately, it was in a very rural area, but the crash happened right in front of a farmhouse that was on the road. They heard the impact and ran down. They did not have a phone, which was not uncommon in rural France in 1970. So the farmer jumped in his car. He did have a car, thank God. And he went into town to get an ambulance. And the farmer's wife got us all into the barn. It was still raining. And she must have given us blankets. The details after are not as clear as the actual. I do remember sitting on hay bales with the 5-year-old as the mother was trying to comfort the baby. It was very dark, and it was just a sense of suspended reality. I don't know how else to put it. And I remember when I realized that what had just happened, I felt like I might, it's like there's such a rush of adrenaline when you have a near miss. I felt like I was just going to start sobbing. But I looked at the 5-year-old and I thought, if I lose it, he doesn't have a chance. And I asked him if he'd like to hear the story of Snow White. And I held myself together by telling him the story of Snow White as we waited for the ambulance. We were taken to a little country clinic where we spent the night. And I had a piece of glass in my foot, which was fished out. The impact was so great, one of my sandals was knocked right off my feet. And that was it. I was badly bruised on my left side, so there's a good chance I went through the door. I honestly don't know. But when we saw the car in the morning, the next morning after we were discharged from the hospital, nobody said, did anyone die? They said, how many people were killed? Because if you saw what was left of the car, it was basically folded in half around this concrete utility pole. It looked impossible that anyone could have lived through that. But all four of us are alive to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. The baby is like, if that was 56 years ago, he's 58, and his brother is 62, and the mother is 86, and we're all still very much alive. And this experience was very bonding. Of course, the children don't really remember it, I don't think. I'm sure on a subliminal level they do. But the mother became much more than just my employer, having come that close to dying together. And I knew that the spirit world was a reality before I had my near-death experience. I grew up in an observant Catholic family, and I was taught to pray by the time I was probably 3, when I had language. And I knew that angels were real. I knew that the spirit world was a reality. But this experience kind of cemented that. It was I would say even before my accident, it was beyond a belief. It was a confident knowing that life is eternal, that this is just one chapter. Our physical life is a chapter in our eternal life. Um, I would say shortly before I had the accident, maybe when I was in high school, I was 20 when I had the accident. When I was in high school, I became interested in esoteric topics. I got a little, not really a book, it was more like a pamphlet. If anyone here is my age, you might remember Dell books. They were 25 cents, little pocket books on various topics. And I got one on palmistry. And I found it fascinating. I wanted to see all my friends' hands and my family, and I would compare them to the illustrations. And the more I did it, the more I realized that I could, as I held somebody's hand, and I was using, the lines as a guide, but I would get inspiration, I guess you could say, and I could tell people things that were quite accurate. And as time went on, I was living in, well, that was a bit later. When I went to France, I got really into learning to read palms. And I found an esoteric bookstore in Paris, and I was able to get lots of good material to study. There was a gentleman named Chiro who was in the 19th century, and he wrote quite a bit about palmistry. But I realized I wasn't that adept at learning all the meanings of the different lines. It was more a psychic download. And people were fascinated, and it was entertaining, I would say. But I didn't take it that seriously. When I was about 22, I was touring Europe with my uncle and my cousin. My uncle had fought in World War II, and we were in the Netherlands at the American military cemetery from World War II. And the Netherlands is as flat as your kitchen table. And a childhood friend of his was buried in that cemetery. So he went there to decorate his grave and take pictures for the young man's parents who never got to see their only son's grave. It was very sad. And as I stood there looking at all of these graves, each grave was laid out with absolute precision by a surveyor. So at any angle that you looked, it looked like soldiers in formation. And I thought for a moment that every grave represented a young man's life, my age or even younger. I was 22 at the time. And suddenly I saw at each grave someone standing there, a soldier or a sailor.
Wow.
And it was very startling. And they spoke to me in unison. It was like a psychic download. It wasn't really, they did say, it's hard to describe when you hear something from the spirit realm. They said, we gave everything.
Yeah.
Now it's your turn.
Wow.
And I wasn't sure what that meant. Growing up as a Catholic child, I felt from about the age of 10 that God was calling me to serve the world. And in my reality, that the way you could do that was to be a nun. And I looked into that and sent away for literature on, I got some pamphlets from the Mary Knowles, who were foreign missionaries. I always had a tremendous desire to travel. And especially somehow I was drawn to Africa. But as I got a little bit older, by the time I was my later years in high school, I also felt that I was supposed to raise a large family. And somehow I couldn't reconcile being a nun with raising a large family. And the number I had in mind was 10 children. And I felt that some of these I would give birth to, and others I would adopt. And I saw myself raising a multiracial family. So as time went on, I kind of had that in the back of my mind. And I'm trying to keep it the Reader's Digest condensed version. At 23, I became involved with a spiritual group. I had been visiting many. Those of you who are old enough to remember the 60s, the early 70s, everybody was looking for their guru. And so I visited many spiritual groups. Many groups were living communally, and they were all very interesting, fascinating, but none of them quite fit me. And then in 1973, I was in Glasgow, Scotland, and I was engaged to a Scotsman, and he was studying for the ministry. He was going to be a Church of Scotland, which is the Presbyterian Church minister. And we were planning to go abroad as missionaries. And I met a group, they're now called the Family Federation for World Peace, and they taught principles for peace and much more. Some really delving into some traditional biblical stories, showing a very kind of a connected, like connecting the dots, how all of these Old Testament stories weren't just random myths, but there was a theme going forward. And what really attracted me is I noticed that it was very international. And I sat down with the person who was willing to teach me, and I felt clearly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I did have a spiritual experience that this was to be my life path. And this was what I had been prepared for. And it involved living a religious life, but also having a family. So my fiance was not into it and tried to force me out of it. But I had a series of spiritual experiences, and one after the other confirmed that this is what these young men in Holland had meant. Now it's your turn. So I went for further study to a weekend workshop. And on the way, as I was sleeping, I had a dream about my brother. And he was crying out for help, and nobody could hear him. And I felt this urgency that I must come back to the States immediately, or my brother would die. I later discovered that my brother was involved in drugs, and he really was in danger of death, and nobody recognized how serious it was. I came back to the US and um, moved into a community of the Family Federation, and that was 1973. I'm still very much involved. My life has evolved tremendously. I'm now 76, a grandmother, even a great grandmother. Many of the prophetic intuitions that I had, I did end up with 10 children. I gave birth to 6 of them, and I raised 4 of my husband's from his first marriage. He had custody of his children. We are a multiracial family. I guess the concept of adoption was fulfilled through his children. I had one daughter at that time. She is white, his children are black, and our 5 children are biracial. And the next generation, my children have also, many of them have married internationally and interracially. So I have some grandchildren that look, my biological grandchildren look white. Some are obviously mixed. Some look very Asian. One of my son-in-laws is half Japanese, and that came through very strongly. So I've got this very interracial, international family. We're a bunch of language nerds. I speak 6 languages in varying degrees. I'll do my workshops in 3. And I translate for my husband in maybe 3. One of the three I work in is English. I do English, French, or Spanish, but I've, in desperation, translated for him in French, Spanish, and Italian. My Italian's pretty bad, but um, I knew what he was trying to say, so I got the idea across. Um, in recent years, I would say since 2017, I have been traveling internationally quite a bit and teaching people how to work with angels. In one word, the most important thing is ask.
Mm.
Angels are very real. They're very powerful spiritual beings who are very happy to work with us and help us, but they respect our free will and they wait for an invitation. And they align with our intention. So if your intention is to benefit the greater good, and you're part of that greater good, they are only too happy to help. If your intention is centered on your own ego, it's really hard for them to connect with that. I've been to every country in Western Europe, several in Eastern Europe, Israel, Australia, um, United States. I've been to 45 states and almost 50 countries doing these workshops on angels. I also have a workshop on gratitude. I heard someone talking about that just a minute ago. The power of applied gratitude as a tool for manifestation and realization. I'll be doing one in Amsterdam on, I think it's the 13th of April. I have a trip coming up to Madrid, Germany. One of my sons lives in Germany. And then we're going to, after Germany, we're going to the Netherlands. So it's quite miraculous how this travel has manifested. I've always loved to travel, but raising a large family, I was kind of grounded for a while. We did have a stint of 3 years in Korea in the late 80s. And most of my married life has been in Norfolk, Virginia, with trips here and there. But in 2017, the international ministry really began in full swing. I was in Germany in 2011, and my son's wife is German, and my son lives there right now. And I have a grandson, which gets me to Germany at least once a year. And I was visiting a church with my son's father-in-law, and they had an altar call, and they said, anybody who would like prayer, please come up to the altar. And I clearly heard, go ask for prayer for your international ministry. And I thought, I don't have an international ministry. What is this all about? And the more I resisted, the more the pressure increased. And finally, I surrendered, and they were singing. The altar call was over. So the pastor and his wife came to greet me. I was obviously a guest. And I told them, I was told to come ask for prayer, and I was disobedient like Jonah. I tried to run away. So they prayed for me and my international ministry that did not exist for another 6 years. And before I left Germany, two people gave me 50 euros apiece. So I left Germany with 100 euros, which is about $120 right now, as seed money for my international ministry.
Wow.
That didn't really manifest until 2017. So it's quite interesting. I found that when I get a word to do something, to talk to someone, I've learned to listen, because if I don't listen, I get hit over the head. And it's just much easier to go with the flow of what I'll call the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, I think, is not just one spirit, but a collective of the Holy Spirit realm that is helping us and guiding us and supporting us. In between the palmistry, someone taught me to read the Turkish coffee cups. And you've probably heard of reading tea leaves. Well,
Hmm.
the Turkish coffee is a very fine powdered coffee that is boiled and then consumed in little demi-tasses. And the person drinks it and is careful not to drink the grounds. And they leave a residue. And I was told, just look at it. I went just for fun with a friend to get our coffee read. And I found she was very good. It was very accurate. And she looked at me and said, you can do this. And I thought, what you talking about? But um, she told me just look and see what it shows you. And sure enough, I found, oh, it's full of little pictures. Now, when I show other people, mostly they just see a blob. But the spirit realm can communicate with us through many different tools, many modalities. We all have some spiritual sense. Um, some of us get a feeling in our gut. Some of us hear like a voice. Some of us just have a dream or wake up with a flash of intuition. But we're all spirit beings. We are divine expressions. We are eternal spirits having a physical experience. And the more we learn to listen and also to filter, because sometimes, yeah, you have to make sure this is not coming from your ego. And I'm a great proponent of prayer and meditation. Get into the zone, get into the space, and things will be very clear. I do readings. I am a practicing medium. I started that in the 90s. I guess it was about the early 90s. Friend invited me to a meditation class. And at the time, I had just had baby number 4, and my husband was unemployed. And I think the workshop cost $25, which in today's money was more like 50. And I said, I don't have the spare money. I'm sorry. He said, you've got to go. You've got to go. I said, well, if I'm supposed to go, the money has to manifest. The next day, my father sent me $25. So I
Oh,
thought, okay, I get it. I'm supposed to go. And when I went to that class, it became very clear to me that it was time for me to use my gift, that I had an awareness of the spirit realm, and I needed to share it with other people to help them. Some years later, maybe about 4 years later, I became a Reiki master. I wasn't looking for it. A friend came from another state and said, I want to give you a Reiki initiation, and several of our friends. And we did level 1 and 2. And then 2 of us were really interested in this, and we ended up doing level 3. And people started coming to us. I worked in tandem with this other woman, and we would work on the same person at the same time, but I was getting these massive downloads, and I was aware that I needed to do this. Now, I took a break. As I said, I was raising a large family, and I took a break for a few years because I just needed to be firmly rooted in the third dimension. And about 16 years ago, I read a book written by a friend. Um, it's a wonderful book if you'd like to learn something about spirit communication. I believe it's Saved by the Light, Ron Papalardo. He's written several books, but his teenage son died by suicide, and it's the story of his healing and his communication with his son, and eventually his son working together with him in suicide prevention. He speaks on university campuses and with young people, and helps to inspire them to get through the hard time, the depression, because they are, in fact, eternal beings. And when I read this book, he mentioned the Spiritualist Church, and I just looked online to see if there was one in my town, and there was. And I decided to check it out, and I ended up going there for about 10 years. I took mediumship development classes, and what I learned in those classes was certain ethics, of being a professional medium, certain protocols and protection. I learned some very practical things. I already knew that I had the ability, but I would say one thing that those classes gave me was the confidence to step out on the international stage. And in 2017, a group of angels visited me. I had a trip to Germany planned to visit our son, and I was told that I should go to Scandinavia. And again, like when I was told to ask for prayer for my international ministry, I said, Scandinavia? I don't know anyone in Scandinavia. I just know that it's really expensive. And the more I resisted, the more the pressure increased. And finally, I just surrendered. I said, okay, I'm just going to buy the tickets from Germany to Denmark, to Stockholm, to Oslo, to Iceland, home. And suddenly I remembered, oh, I do have a Swedish friend. She's lived here for years, but I'm sure she knows someone in our association in Sweden. Within about 72 hours, I had invitations to all those places. It happened so quickly. And the angels promised me, if you do this, they wanted me to do the angel workshops and let people know they're real and they want to work with us and they want to help us solve the many problems we're facing. They said, we'll take care of the business end. So I put these tickets, they weren't terribly expensive. Most of them were less than $100. I put them on a credit card, and I had a habit of really abstaining from using credit cards. But they promised me, if you do this, we will take care of the business end of things. And I did not charge for the workshops. I never do. But I asked for donations. We do have a nonprofit, my husband and I, that works in Haiti, for my expenses, and anything that was left would go to the our Haiti projects. And the first place I stopped, which was Copenhagen, the host put out a cardboard box. It was a Monday night. People had very short notice, and everybody had been working that day. There were about 28 people that showed up, and he left out a cardboard box. It looked like what children use to put their Valentines in, a little slit. And he said, if you'd like to make a donation, please put it in the box. The next morning when I came downstairs for breakfast, he was just speechless. And he said, I never imagined. I said, what? He said, here's the donations. It was $1,200. I had the same experience in Stockholm, the same experience in Norway, everywhere I went. And I got the message. The angels kept their promise. I covered any expenses I had, which were minimal because each host provided hospitality for me and the venue. All I had to do was show up. I had enough money to dig a well when I got back. I brought home $4,000.
Wow.
So after that, I really understood that manifestation has a lot to do with faith. If you have been guided to do something, a way has already been prepared for you. And if you just step out, take that first step. There was an Eddie Murphy movie about a child Messiah. I can't remember the name. Maybe somebody here, I think it was in the 80s or the 90s. And he has to walk across this chasm. And as he takes a step, the path extends. And each step that he takes, the path keeps extending. The bad guys are trying to get this little kid and contaminate him with bloodshed. But Eddie Murphy's job is to save him and thus save the world. Gosh, I wish I could remember the name of the movie, but if you do a Google search on Eddie Murphy, you'll find it. But that visual was very helpful for me. And the angels often speak to me with visuals. They'll give me a picture and I'll see it. Now, something else that's quite remarkable. From 2020, I have been able to fly anywhere in the world that United Airlines goes at virtually no cost. Small, like a penny on the dollar. I have to pay tax. My sister used to work for United Airlines, and one of her retirement benefits is that she can designate 2 family members as her travel companions, but she doesn't have to go with us. So I have no excuse. I have a magic carpet. Wherever I'm invited, I can go. And I don't have to worry about how to get there because a way has already been made. Now, when I arrive, I might have to get some local flights or a train or a bus, but that's fine. That's very manageable. And the reason you see me sitting in my car is that I drive Uber in the mornings. I'm supposed to be home by 10, but I got far away this morning and was working my way home. And sometimes I'm a little forgetful at my age, but we have a trip to Africa coming up, and I do need to prepare some cash for that. That will be purely a service trip. There will be little or no possibility of making money there unless we find someone who has a diamond mine, perhaps, which is very possible. You know, I live in the realm of the preposterous and the impossible. And my life is a series of miracles.
Wow. It really is. It's beautiful.
It's incredible. In November, my husband and I went to Switzerland. We came back from Geneva first class. Those tickets are worth $5,000 and change. We had to pay $58.
That is
So it's about a penny on the dollar that we pay in tax or airport fees. Some London's more expensive. It's like 180. Can you imagine?
wow. That is fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. What a blessing. And it's just so exciting because how old did you say you are, Claire?
I am 76 years old. I will be on April 7th.
76, and you are a world traveler. You're still going all over the world to teach
Yes.
your classes, and you're immersed in service, and you're just touching so many lives in such a beautiful way. I wanted to ask you a question. You said when you went to this, when the angels told you to go to Scandinavia, right? And they wanted you
Yeah.
to teach there, you just bought the tickets and you were like, okay, I'm going to go here, here, and here. And then when you got there, the donation box was put out and you made over $4,000. And then you were able to dig a well. Can you tell us about that? What do you mean by that?
Yes. Well, as I mentioned, we have a nonprofit. My husband and I have a nonprofit foundation. And let me see if I can. Okay. We have a nonprofit foundation. We mainly work in Haiti, although we also work in the Dominican Republic. We will be doing work for our nonprofit in Africa in June. We're going to Malawi, Zambia, and South Africa. We were able to dig a well in the Dominican Republic with the money that I made on the first trip.
Wow.
And we've been able to do all kinds of things. As I said, I do not charge any kind of an admission for the angel workshops. I do, at the coffee break, give a little public service announcement and advertisement and
Yeah.
invite people to donate to our nonprofit.
Yeah.
We distribute a little shoe. It's called the Shoe That Grows. And it's a sandal that expands 5 sizes. So it's a tremendous blessing for children in the third world. They're
Yeah.
very tough and it takes a long time to outgrow them because they can keep expanding.
Oh, wow.
And we have built 2 small libraries in Haiti with almost entirely donated books. When I go to France or Switzerland or a French-speaking area, I will ask for books. In Spain, I got a heap of books donated for the Dominican Republic. I'm just a professional beggar, and I have no problem asking for the kids because it,
Yeah.
it's not for me. But I make my expenses by doing readings. I do readings frequently. Sometimes I'm working every day. I do them by Zoom, and I have clientele really on every continent but Antarctica.
Wow. Wow.
And I love doing readings because I can help people to understand if they're having a struggle. I can see maybe where it came from. Is it an ancestral problem? Many
Hmm.
times people will think something is from a past life when in fact it's an intergenerational issue that has not been resolved. So we
Hmm.
keep getting another chance and another chance to fix it
Yeah.
so that it doesn't go down to our children and our grandchildren.
Wow.
I love doing readings. I just love doing readings. I
And
love driving Uber. It's like my mobile sanctuary.
I'll bet you meet so many different people and you're able to help them in your ways while you're driving them around, and that's wonderful. When you are giving readings, can I ask you about that? Uh,
Yes.
it's great that you speak six different languages. I'm sure that helps, right? With different.
Well, I do reading. I'll do readings in English, French, or Spanish.
Okay.
And if desperate, Italian. My Italian's really not quite adequate.
Okay.
I do speak very functional German and Korean. I lived in Korea for 3 years, but
Wow.
it's not adequate to do a reading.
Okay.
And
But
my German isn't either. But usually my German speakers can understand English.
that's great. But what I wanted to ask you about that is when you get information to give to people, generally, I know different mediums work in different ways. They have different clairs, right? So I
Yes.
just want to ask you, what is your, because you're able to go into the intergenerational aspects of people's line, right, of their ancestry.
Yes.
What is it that what would you say is your strongest clair? And not you, Claire. I mean Claire, like clairvoyance, clair.
Well, I have several. I'm
Yeah.
clairvoyant. I'm
Okay.
clairaudient. I'm clairsentient.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes there's one of taste, clairgoustience. I
Yeah.
pretty much have them all.
Yeah.
I would say the strongest ones are the clairvoyance. I see things as imagery.
Hmm.
Clairsentience. The spirit realm speaks to me many times in emotion.
Hmm.
I'll see a picture and I'll feel an intense understanding of what they're trying to show me. Sometimes I will hear specific words.
Yes.
Usually they prefer to show me more effectively by like showing me the big picture.
Hmm.
But sometimes they will use certain words because they're meaningful to the sitter. An example, I did a reading for a widow whose husband was a scientist, and his idol was Albert Einstein. And she wanted to know what he was doing in the spirit world. And he was sitting having tea with Einstein. And she said, "Well, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm connecting the dots." And when he said that, she gasped. And she said he always said that. He was trying to connect the dots. So in her case, she knew it was him. Sometimes
Uh,
someone in the spirit realm will use an expression that the sitter will recognize. Sometimes they'll use a symbol. Sometimes, I know one woman wasn't so sure. I had been recommended to her. I do not have a website. I
mhm.
do not advertise. I let people find me through word of mouth. So someone has recommended me. And as you know, Dick Dingus wrote the book, The Directory of Experiencers, and he's a great fan and a good friend.
Yeah.
So I would consider him my reference for this program. Um, this woman was a little uncertain, and she decided that if I was really legitimate, I would give her a specific number. Well, the spirit world does not work that way. That's very left brain.
Yeah.
They communicate through feelings and vision and emotions. And so right before the end of the reading, her father had appeared. I said, wait, we're not done. Your father's here. And he keeps saying, "Don't forget the jewels. Don't forget the jewels." And he was holding a little velvet bag. And she burst out laughing. because that was very, very meaningful to her. She knew exactly what that was about. Don't forget the jewels, because I didn't come up with a number. Um, I like, kind of like if you get referred to a doctor by a good friend, they said this doctor's really good with such and such.
Mhm.
It's hard for the doctor to work if you're very guarded and suspicious and
Right.
testing. So I like to work with people that come already open,
Right.
expecting that I'm going to do my job and do it correctly. I have a lot of stuff on the internet that I have not put up there. I don't have a YouTube channel. I don't even have a website. But my angel workshop that I did in Madrid, I think it was 2018, it's on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
Um,
That's
it's
great.
under Espacio Ronda, if somebody wants to watch it in Spanish. There is another one in English that was all virtual, and it's under Women's Federation for World Peace. Self-care isn't selfish, and they posted that on YouTube. But a lot of talks that I've given at different churches are on there. Once a year, I do prophecy for the coming year, and a number of those have been posted. So if you Google my name, you'll get a hodgepodge of things. I was
Nice.
interviewed in Portugal about I did a tour of Portugal for 10 days doing angel workshops. I do not speak Portuguese, but they told me just do them in Spanish and we'll get it. It's easier. Using
Yeah.
a translator can be so cumbersome. Everything takes twice as long. So I spoke Spanish and people spoke Portuguese to me, which is much harder to understand. They can understand Spanish easily because it's very clear and in the front of the mouth, but Portuguese is really guttural. Sounds a little like Russian.
Mhm.
And I had to really focus to understand. But I was interviewed twice, once in Spanish, once in English, by a man who asked some really good questions about angels. The name of that program is Conversas del Alma, and there are two of them. So if you want English, just persist and you'll find it.
Very
Uh,
nice.
Conversas del Alma,
So,
and
okay.
there's even one from was it not Bosnia? Where was it from? Slovakia. And you can hear the Slovakian translation. It's really poor quality. Somebody did it with their cell phone. So there's a hodgepodge of
Yeah.
programs
So if
that are
someone
on
wanted to get
YouTube.
in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you? Through email?
They well, if it's your class, you can give them my email, or
Okay.
they can find me on Facebook, Claire Daugherty. And there's an old picture, the baby in my lap on my opening page. I'm going for his 14th birthday in Germany, but there is a picture of my multiracial family on the front porch, and just a small portion of it. We're all dressed in red, white, and black. Claire Daugherty, Daugherty. And the Claire has an I and an E. So for your class, please feel free to give my contact info. I don't like
Okay.
to put it out. I was on Jeff
Yeah.
Mara's podcast, and I got like 27,000 views. And I just said, contact me by Facebook.
Okay. All right. Great.
But as I said, your class, everybody.
Yeah.
My email, my phone is fine.
All right. Awesome. So now I want to ask if anybody has any questions or input or insights that you would like to um, ask Claire or say to Claire. We would welcome you to raise your hand so I know you're interested in. I can only see a small portion of you. So if you're raising your hand without the raise hand function, I may not see you. All right. Anybody? All right. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your the oh, here we go. Let's let Dolores ask you a question. Come on in, Dolores.
Hi, Dolores.
Hi, I just want to say this has been incredibly interesting, and I've really, really enjoyed everything you had to say right from the beginning.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm a
thank
very
you.
spiritual person and certainly very open to so many things. And I've really enjoyed this, and I want to thank you for sharing.
You are so welcome. Dolores, I'd like to invite you and everyone that's on this call to a monthly function that I host. You can come by Zoom. It's called the Tidewater. That's the region I live in, Tidewater, Virginia. Tidewater Lightworkers. And every fourth Saturday at 1 o'clock, we have various presenters. This time we will have a healer in March who works with a team from the spirit world, team of doctors. She is a registered nurse and has remarkable results. And I will be narrating what I'm seeing her do and what I'm observing from the spirit side. We have a dowser coming up. We have a woman who's a homeopathic doctor who charges her remedies with specific frequencies, personalizes the remedies. All kinds of healers, metaphysical ministers, dowsers. We had a shaman. We had somebody with crystalline consciousness technique. And every month is different. So I will send Catherine the link for the Tidewater Lightworkers. And if you wish to be on the mailing list, let her know. That's Dick Dingus has the mailing list, Catherine.
Okay, I'm definitely interested because I am a nurse and I'm a therapeutic touch practitioner going way back to the beginning. So all of this is a great deal of interest to me. Thank you.
Oh, you will love Nikki Spears.
Right.
She's amazing. She's
Okay.
quite well known in this area, but she's getting national invitations now to travel.
Wow. That's exciting. Really excited. I'm going to pop in also, and I will send out the link and Claire's information in the next email. Okay. So next week I'll send, my email for the class and Claire's information, and that link will be posted on there for everybody. All right.
Catherine, I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
If you send your contact to Dick Dingus and tell him you would like the link for the Tidewater Lightworkers meetings, then you can send it to whoever in your group would like to be included.
Great.
And then everybody is welcome.
Awesome. I will do that for sure.
It's 1 o'clock Eastern time, the fourth Saturday.
Great.
And if you're local, if you're in the Tidewater area, come at noon and we have a great potluck.
It sounds like
I haven't quite figured out how to do that virtually. I have to watch my old Star Trek.
Unless everybody just makes themselves lunch and you can turn Zoom on and you can all eat together, right? That's a good way of doing it. All right. Well, thank you, Dolores. And now I see we have two other hands. So we're going to bring in Diane.
Oh,
hi, Diane.
Hi, Claire. I just wanted to actually just second what Dolores said. So this has been really a wonderful hour to sit and listen to your experiences. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much, Diane. I'm very sorry that the first quarter was I wasn't available. I was under the Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah, well, I've been there, and I'm sure I know what you're talking about. Being under the bay.
Claire, you're a multitasker. That's part of who you are. So we understand. And no worries. All right. Thank you, Diane. Appreciate it.
And you were worth waiting for. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. I see we have Kathy.
Yes. Hello, Claire. Just interesting.
Hi, Kathy.
Yeah, an interesting talk. Thank you. Just wondered if in the beginning, because you said you came from a religious family, did you have any resistance where people said, this doesn't seem normal? Did people resist your gifts in the beginning, even now?
Well, that's a really good question. I remember as a very small child, when I was 3, I could not have been more than 4 because we left that particular house when I was 4. Our backyard abutted a cemetery. And sometimes lost spirits would wander in the house. And usually the kind of spirits that are wandering are pretty low vibration. So I remember waking up in the night and seeing a man standing in the corner, and I called him Mr. Plosion. He might have died in an explosion. I don't know where I got Plosion from. And I woke my mother and asked her, please make him go away. He was rather dark. And I remember he was wearing like a maroon vest, and he was dressed in dark colors, and he was just standing in the corner of the room. And my mother looked straight at him and said, there's no one there, dear. And I thought, aha, that's how you get rid of them. You just look them straight in the eye and say, you're not there. And I had an imaginary friend as a child, and I was repeatedly told that he wasn't real. I knew he was real. His name was Tommy. He was about my age. I was 4 or 5. It's before I went to kindergarten. And then I realized somehow it's not acceptable to have a spirit friend. So when I was playing with Tommy, if I heard someone coming, I would tell him, shh, somebody's listening. And that's the only resistance that I can remember, being told that these things I was experiencing weren't real. I was a funny kid. I went to Catholic school, and every morning on a school day, the school bus would drop us off in the church parking lot, and we went to Mass. And I loved it. If I had the day off from school, I'd ride my bike like 2 miles to go to Mass. I didn't want to miss it. I loved any type of religious ritual. I was always very at home with sacred ceremony. The only day I didn't go to church was Saturday. Of course, I went with my family on Sunday, and then Monday through Friday I went with school. And on the holidays, I went by myself. Or sometimes this was in the 1950s, when Catholics were more observant. I had to go. The whole family had to go. My father was not Catholic, but my mother would take the kids, and if we had to go, if it's an official holy day. But sometimes we had other days off that was not required. But I've always, and my sister was reading my diary from when I was 10 and laughing, saying, oh my God, even as a kid, you were like ultra religious. But I don't consider myself so religious now. It's more spiritual. I think religious is a phase. It's a step towards developing our full spirituality.
Wonderful. But it doesn't sound like you had a lot of pushback. It sounds like, normal, oh, it's not there. You're imagining that. That's kind of the normal thing. But it doesn't sound like you got a lot of pushback from your family.
It's not from my family. My sister is also a medium, although she's very shy, and I've asked her to go on tour with me, and she won't. Aww. She's the source of my free travel. I took her to Europe a couple years ago, and it was a lot of, are we there yet? So I think I won't ask her to travel with me again. Well, that's funny because she was the professional traveler. She was a flight attendant, but she doesn't really enjoy traveling like I do. I'm always up for an adventure.
She's tired of it, I guess, by now, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, this has been wonderful. I just want to see if anybody else would like to ask you a question or comment before we end. I'm just looking. All right. Well, this has been such a treat. And thank you so much, Claire, for being here today.
It's been my pleasure.
It's really been so wonderful to hear your story. And I could talk to you probably for hours. We have a lot of things in common, and I would love to connect with you maybe in the future if you're.
Oh, please do.
Yeah.
And we are both ordained ministers, and there's an old saying: never give a minister a mic, because you never know when the end is coming. So I hope I didn't overstay my welcome.
Oh, absolutely not. We are at the golden minute here, and this is perfect timing, and everything is in divine timing, and this worked out beautifully. So thank you so much, and safe travels. be safe driving your Uber. I just love the idea of you driving people around and having your sacred vehicle on wheels.
Yes, it really is. It's amazing how people will tell you their life story because they never expect to see you again. Or sometimes people just need to be comforted. Maybe they've just suffered a loss.
Yeah.
Sometimes people ask me to pray with them, which I'm
That-
always happy to do. And
That's
I have a prayer call with Dick Dingus and some other friends every morning at 10. And if I'm driving, I will ask my passengers permission if they mind if I join the prayer call. Of course, my map is still on. And nobody said no yet. And many have asked me to pray for them.
oh, that's wonderful.
Yes,
Wonderful.
I'm a real prayer warrior. I very
Yeah,
much believe in the power of prayer.
absolutely. It works.
It does, in any form or fashion,
Yep.
in any language or tradition.
That's
Prayer
right.
is prayer.
And I heard something once that I thought was so true. If the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that
Yeah.
would be enough. Like that's it. The gratitude, right? Being
It
grateful,
is.
grateful. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well,
Did Wayne have a comment?
Yeah, I want to say thank you, Claire. You were so inspiring.
Oh, thank you, Wayne.
thanks, Wayne. All right. Well, with that, we're going to say thank you again, Claire. And we're so grateful for you being here. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you everyone for being here with us.